Welcome, everybody, to Shadowbox Decision Games Warfighters Edition, the interactive site devoted to helping practitioners exercise their tactical decision-making skills and to advancing tactical thought in general through the use of tactical decision games. I'm your host, John Schmidt. I'm also the CEO of Shadowbox, a company dedicated to studying the nature of expertise in a variety of domains and to helping people develop that expertise through a variety of interventions like warfighters. Today, we're going to talk about the scenario Ambush in the Square, which actually takes place over the course of two tactical decision games, which have gotten a lot of discussion recently on warfighters. My guest is Raven, a regular contributor to Warfighters. Well, Raven, welcome.
Thank you so much. Really an honor to be here and excited to dig into it.
Great. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a former Army guy. I always planned on going career, but I got cut short by an injury. So I had to go the contracting route for a bit. Wasn't too thrilled with that. But some of my friends from the Army started a company called Special Tactics and brought me on board. And we're a training company. We try to focus on things that other companies don't really focus on, capabilities gaps. There are a lot of great companies out there, but there are also a lot of things that should be that aren't, like really detailed manuals with big color pictures. So we started with that. And then we moved on to online training. Another thing, you don't see a lot of good stuff. You know, it's getting better, and then we do a lot of innovative approaches to in-person training. A lot very similar to what this is all about here. It's, what we used to call outcomes-based training and education, or OBT&E or OBL now. Everything has to be, it's all about doing it. It's all about learning by doing, solving problems. And then we also started the Warfare Mastery Institute, which takes the same approach and applies it to, just more general population topics like military history and professional development and technology and things like that.
So how would our listeners find Special Tactics or the Warfare Mastery Institute?
Well, I think you have a link that you'll show at the end, but it's specialtactics.me is our main website. .me, that is special tactics, one word, .me, and then warfaremastery.com.
Great. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Ambush in the Square. So before we get into the tactical discussion, what'd you think of the scenario?
I thought it was great. And the discussion that followed it and the debate, I learned a lot. I think, it broadened my perspective on things, showed me different ways of looking at the problem that weren't my initial way of looking at it. And it was fun. And I think it's realistic too.
I'm always surprised how, it's a really simple setup, but I'm always surprised how something that simple can lead to some really, really rich conversations about tactical decision making, weapons employment, support by fire positions, where you go, what the enemy's doing, what the enemy's likely to do, how you're reading the situation, all that kind of stuff. And you're right, there was a lot of conversation about these two TDGs in particular, and a lot of that was due to sort of your diving in and questioning people and getting the discussion going, which I thought was really neat.
Well, I appreciate that. I love this stuff. So, it's always want to participate and learn as much as I can.
Yeah. So let's talk about the scenario, Ambush in the Square. So just for our listeners who have not done it yet, you can always go to warfighters.substack.com and do the TDGs yourself. And post your answers and then get some comments from other people. But for those of you who haven't had the chance, here's the basic scenario. Your rifle platoon is running a security patrol on foot through an urban environment, and they're about to cross this city square. And you are a squad leader. And in the first TDG, your first squad, so you're the point of the platoon patrol column. The platoon is moving from south to north, that's from bottom to top, along First Street, and you come to the west side of the square here. And your squad moves across the square safely. Second squad and the platoon headquarters element enter the square and get ambushed. So second squad and the platoon commander are pinned down in the square. You don't know what's happened to third squad. They could be in the square, maybe they're not. You don't know. Your squad is clear of the square, so you have freedom of action. What are you going to do now based on and the communications with the platoon commander are down. You can't talk to the platoon commander. You can't raise the platoon sergeant. So you're kind of on your own. What are you going to do? So what was your sort of immediate intuitive assessment of the situation, and then what did you decide to do about it?
Well, I immediately remembered lessons from combat and training, and there we encountered a similar in a training exercise that I did early in my career. We encountered a similar scenario, and it was actually a test to see if you would become decisively engaged and focus on killing the enemy, when really your objective was something else. And almost every team that went through, including mine, got sucked into the same trap. And it ended up being more enemy than we had bargained for. And the question at the end was, well, why did you get sucked in? So that kind of pinged in my memory as soon as I saw this. And also, we got a man down. Uh, our main focus needs to be getting him out of there. And if it's counterinsurgency, we all know you don't ultimately win counterinsurgency by killing the enemy. We're already at a disadvantage because they initiated. It's not our time and place. We didn't choose the time and place of battle. So let's cut our losses and get out while we can, and come back and go after these guys at night when they're sleeping, as opposed to when we're in their kill zone. So that was my first kind of general assessment of the situation.
So how do you implement that in a plan then? What was your concept of ops?
My plan was to stay in. We're currently out of the line of fire. We're out of the
Right.
kill zone. Stay out of that, and move up and turn left here, remaining out of the line of fire, and come back around and enter into this long two-story building from the rear, and then set up the most robust support by fire that we can in that building, with machine guns on the second floor, preferably with some standoff from the windows, um, some additional cover in, underneath the windows if we can move some furniture, etc., and set up a strong support by fire where we can suppress those two buildings
Right.
where the enemy is located. Because another concern of mine was that in the scenario brief, it said that the enemy would operate in groups of up to 20. Um, so we'll need a heavy volume of fire potentially in order to suppress both of those buildings. Then from there, the question is, how do we make contact with the platoon commander and assist second and third squad to break contact? It essentially becomes a break contact drill.
Mhm.
We're providing the support by fire. They break contact either into the building they're adjacent to and to the rear, or potentially we drag that casualty into our building, and where he'll have more protection, get him away from the windows. And I also mentioned in my solution something really useful for that a lot of units don't do. Every unit should do it. Is having a 15-foot tubular nylon rescue device with a carabiner on the end of it. The classic Saving Private Ryan problem where you have a guy shot in the street, with a sniper covering your wounded buddy, and when you go out and try to get to him, someone else can get shot.
Right.
So the solution there is, if he's conscious and you have these 15-foot tubular nylon strands with the carabiner on the end of it, you toss him the carabiner, he clips it to the back of his kit, and then you just get a group of folks. It's hard to do it with one person, but get a group of folks, tie some butterfly knots in the tubular nylon and pull them to safety. And if you need two, you just attach two. If everyone on the team has one, you can attach one, two, three, as many as you need to reach him. If he's unconscious or you can't throw it that far, you can sprint out and clip it on his gear and then sprint back. So you're still exposing yourself, but you're
But
not,
not as much. Yeah.
you're not dragging him. So
Yeah.
that was another thing that immediately came to mind, that, if we can drag him to safety using one of those devices, if our unit has it, do that. And then from there, once again, break contact, come back to fight another day.
hmm So your basic thinking is, well, my thinking is you've got to do something to change the situation, right? Or right now, the way the situation's set up, it's in his favor. And so you've got to do something to change the situation. And in your mind, What you're changing about the situation is you're creating overwhelming volume of fire from that building on the west end of the square, and that's going to give you fire superiority, which is going to allow you to pull out the casualties.
Correct.
Yeah. So I had, and I think a lot of people were on board with your decision. I had a different take on it, and a couple other people kind of saw it the way I did. But I was thinking that the way you help second platoon is not go into the kill zone to try to pull them out, and possibly get yourself pinned down and take some casualties yourself, but that you help second platoon by forcing the enemy to withdraw. And so my thinking was that we actually. We actually maneuver, get into some positions where we can bring some fire to bear against the enemy, and not to defeat him, but just to lever him out of position. Because my thinking is this guy is an insurgent. He likes to do hit and run. He wants to inflict a couple casualties, but he wants to get out of here before we can bring overwhelming power to bear. He doesn't want to get decisively engaged. And as soon as he springs his ambush, he's got a clock ticking in his head, and he's asking himself, how much longer can I stick around here before I cut and go? And I want to give him every incentive to get out of there by threatening to maneuver on him and get him to withdraw. And then I can go into the kill zone and take care of second platoon, take care of civilian casualties without any risk now, because the threat has disappeared. So my thinking is task number one is eliminate the threat, and then everything else becomes easy. So what's your reaction to that?
Well, my initial reaction was I had a few counter arguments. Since then, with the back and forth, I might as well kind of jump to my current impression. I see a lot of value in your COA for a few reasons, and there are pros and cons to each one.
There are no right answers to any of these.
Yeah, no,
That's kind
exactly.
of the point. Yeah.
And like you said, the pro is, first of all, we know that the enemy has this pattern of behavior where he pulls back as soon as someone moves aggressively against him. And second, breaking contact is never an easy thing, because anytime you're moving away from the enemy, turning your back on the enemy, running away, and you're taking pressure off the enemy, even if you have strong suppression, it's there's always the possibility that we're going to take more casualties running away, especially when the
Sure.
enemy gets motivated and says, "Hey, they're running away. Let's pour it on them." Whereas if you are more aggressive, well, you get their heads down, you get them to bug out. So yeah, initially, I think that there are definitely some advantages to the aggressive COA as opposed to the kind of conservative or cautious COA that I chose. The initial counterpoints that I made were first, and these were things that I've kind of taught people or argued about with people for on many occasions. One is that the idea, the infantry close with and destroy the enemy. Absolutely, in World War II, in most wars, in most situations, the best way to win is not to just get into a gunfight, but to close with and destroy the enemy aggressively. However, particularly in counterinsurgency, and when you're fighting insurgents that are less capable at range, that's not always the case. Um, we have better weapons, we have better optics, we have better marksmanship training, and as we know, a lot of these insurgents don't even aim. Their weapons aren't zeroed. They spray bullets freely. So by remaining at distance, you're making yourself a lot harder for them to hit because they're not good at engaging a distance. Whereas the closer you get, you're playing more into their game. Um, which we get close enough and you'll just get hit with a hail of randomly sprayed
Yeah.
bullets. And
And of course,
yeah, go
everything
ahead.
here is taking place within 100 yards, right? I mean, everything here is battle sites.
True. And
Yeah.
and that and, and that was I was that was interesting. I saw when you made that comment in the chat. Point taken. But I would also argue that even at 100 meters, the bad guys are a whole lot better at killing you at 20 meters or 10 meters than they are at the further away you get.
Yeah,
Even
point taken.
the zeroing wouldn't necessarily come into effect. The weapon range wouldn't really come into effect. but we're just better at shooting from a distance. The second point was I initially thought that there wasn't. I don't know the degree of supporting fire that we have coming from second and third. They could be completely suppressed. There could be more casualties. They're not in a great position to suppress because they're in the street. I never want to fight an enemy in a building from the street if I don't have to. Um, so I don't know if I really have a support by fire to maneuver. And obviously, you don't always have to follow the manual. We do have screening and protection from the buildings, but I'd rather move with a support by fire. And I argued that if we set up the support by fire, perhaps third squad or second squad could maneuver with a more robust, support by fire from within the building.
Mhm.
Then the next one was distance. It's even though it's only 100 meters in an urban environment, distance can be, I mean, that's a long way to move. Now, if you're just sprinting down the alley, that's an option, but that is dangerous if there
Yeah.
are other elements or it's a complex ambush along your route. So I generally prefer, I mean, you want to fight from building to building, building hop. And that takes a while, even if you're doing, clear on the move or clear and hold, and you're not actually dominating any rooms or doing any kind of deliberate clearing. It's going to take a while, and I worry about those guys being in the kill zone while we're moving there. And
While you're maneuvering. Yeah.
yeah, and then the final one was the risk of the houseborne IED, and it's happened enough overseas where the enemy, they want to draw you in, they give you a golden path to take the building, and they go out the back, and the whole thing is rigged to blow. So
Right.
I very overseas. I didn't like to enter a building that I hadn't planned to enter and that I didn't have intelligence on, if possible. I mean, obviously, sometimes you have to, but if you don't have to, you never know. It could be that one in 100 where it's all rigged to blow. So
Yeah.
those were some of the the justification that I gave for my more cautious approach.
Yeah.
But it went back and forth. And once again, a lot of people made a lot of really interesting notes and contributions on both sides of the argument.
One thing that got a lot of discussion was the possibility of I'd call it a secondary ambush. You called it a compound ambush, I think, or a baited ambush that they ambush you in the square. They anticipate that your element that made it through the kill zone already is going to maneuver against them, and they set up a second ambush to hit you while you're maneuvering, which would be a pretty sophisticated thing for the enemy to do. Um, and I take that, and I considered that, and I considered it unlikely. And I think one of the guys, somebody criticized me for maybe not giving the enemy enough credit. I think I did, because as I thought about it, I'm thinking, okay, he can set up two ambushes, um, complicates his command and control, divides his forces, complicates his withdrawal, and it only works if I cooperate by walking into both ambushes, right? Which might or might not happen. And if I were the enemy, I would almost be thinking, I'm better off keeping my force together, simplifying my plan, simplifying my withdrawal, concentrating my fires into a single kill zone and getting a mass kill there rather than splitting my forces, complicating my plan, and requiring the enemy to cooperate by stumbling into both ambushes. So again, no right answer. We don't know, but I'm not convinced that a smart enemy is necessarily going to decide he's better off setting up two or even three ambushes. Because when we get to TDG 09 and third squad, now there's the possibility that if you try to maneuver around the south side, he may set up a secondary ambush there as well and divide himself three ways. I don't know. But anyway, a lot of really interesting discussion about all of this. But I think the key point that everybody was in agreement on was that the objective here is not to destroy the enemy. The objective here is to rescue second squad and the platoon commander. And is the best way to do that to go in and get them, or is the best way to do that to lever the enemy out of position and make the threat go away? That's kind of the fundamental question, I think.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. So let's move on then. So that's TDG 08, enemy in the square, and then TDG 09, or ambush in the square. TDG 09 is ambush in the square from bad to worse. And so what happens in that one? In that scenario, you're now the leader of third squad. and you're bringing up the rear of the platoon column, and the scenario develops just as it did previously. You get to the square. The platoon sergeant goes forward to confer with the lieutenant. First squad moves across the square safely out of the kill zone. Second squad moves into the square, gets hit, is pinned down. You've lost comms with the platoon commander. You've lost comms with the platoon sergeant. But your squad is safe out of the kill zone. First fire team manages to scramble back out of the line of fire, and then you get some more, garbled message over the radio that first squad is maneuvering against the enemy, which is what I did in my solution to ambush in the square, right? But in the process of doing that, first squad runs into a secondary ambush, and now they're under in contact, and they get hit somewhere you can't see them. So somewhere in that alley, on the north side of the square, they've been hit. They're pinned down, and so now you got second squad pinned down in the square. You got first squad pinned down north of the square. You're the only element now with freedom of maneuver. You can't talk to the platoon sergeant. You can't talk to the platoon commander. What do you do now? So what at this point, things have gone from bad to worse. That's the title. What did you do?
Well, interestingly, I flipped. I didn't look at your proposed COA first. Obviously, I never want to spoil the surprise. But I was very surprised that on the previous one we kind of took opposite approaches. On this one, we took almost exactly the same approach. And in this situation, I don't think you have a choice but to go on the offensive. I quoted, it's usually attributed to Robert E. Lee, but there are a few alternate opinions of who said it first. But I was too weak to defend, so I attacked. We're in a
Chancellorsville.
bad. Say again.
Chancellorsville, right?
Yep, Chandler. Yep, absolutely. So, we're in a bad situation here, and we're weak, and we're in trouble. And we got two elements that are being suppressed, that are not mutually supporting, by two different enemies, and each element is isolated. So the first, trying to do the COA that I did before, of moving into a building to set up support by fire. There's no building where I can cover both forces and suppress both enemy.
You don't
Um,
even know exactly where first squad is.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So how do we solve both problems at once? Now we could pick one. So something that came to mind is, okay, well, first squad is the most hung out to dry. They're in trouble. So what I could potentially do is I could lose your pen here, loop around here, go up north, and try to come in this way somehow. But if you look at it, once again, there's no buildings that give me any kind of good angle to engage the enemy,
Right.
and I'm going to be shooting right through their backs.
Right
Uh,
through first squad. Right.
yeah, exactly, right through first squad, and the only way to get any ability to accurately identify and engage the enemy is getting closer and closer. At which point, I'm walking into the same kill zone.
Right. You're joining the enemy or joining first squad in the kill zone. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't really see any option there. And at the same time, if we do that, we're leaving second squad here, out, alone, and in trouble. Whereas if we tried to, help second squad and go into this building, well, then we're leaving first squad in trouble. How do you solve both problems? Well, there's only one way. The way to solve both problems is to go for the throat, cut the snake off at the head,
Hmm.
cut the head off the snake. If these guys fall back, the smaller element here the best chance of getting them to fall back is for them to see that their buddies are in trouble and falling back, and they don't want to be left behind.
Sure.
That was the only way that I saw, to solve the problem, and the way that I did that. But so, of course, a lot of the other, and we'll probably get into this, but a lot of the folks that took the opposite approach and said, "Hey, we can't go down here because there was an ambush up there. There could be another one down here." Um, and if we have three elements that are all isolated and all under fire and not mutually supporting, well, then we're really, really in trouble. So we got to cut our losses at this point. And so I'm aware of that risk that there could be another ambush down here. So the way I dealt with that is I kind of tried a little bit of a deception. Um, and things like this, in my experience, usually are hard to actually make work. It's hard to trick the enemy, but it's at least worth a try. And I don't think we lost anything by doing it. So we start moving down here. Obviously, if you can move through buildings quickly, better to move through buildings for cover and concealment. But if you can't, you move around. As soon as we get here, and hopefully everyone carries at least one smoke grenade. We need a lot of smoke. So we want to get up here to the point where is the enemy? Where is their most likely avenue of approach for us? Well, they probably think we're going to come through here, just as they thought we were going to come through here, as opposed to going deeper.
Right.
So they think we're going to come through here. So let's feed their assumption. Let's make them think that we're walking into their trap. No better way to deceive. It's always the best to deceive the enemy by playing into what he already thinks is going to happen.
Right.
So we basically get to a point about here, and we start throwing smoke all into this alley as if we're going to come down the alley. Now, wherever the enemy is, they're then going to be looking into the smoke to try to see us. And they're probably not going to turn their back on the smoke. Let's say they're in here. Let's say they're in the bistro. They're probably not going to turn their back on the smoke because they're worried that we might emerge out of it and kill them. So it's basically a distraction. It's going to draw their attention up here, while we go further to the south. And once again, we don't know what's down there. We could try to move through these buildings, but then once again, depending on how big it is, we don't want to run into the enemy in the building. But however we do it, whether it's moving through buildings or around buildings, use as much cover and concealment as possible. Come down this way and try to get either into here or ideally into the government offices, because that really gives us the most ability to just shoot right through the long axis of that building. And the other advantage of having the smoke there is if we're going around the south like this, if at any point we take contact, we can actually move into that smoke and retreat, withdraw through the smoke.
Mhm.
That can help cover our withdrawal if by the chance the enemy did position down here. Um,
Right.
so once we're in the government office, then my next thought was to use a trick that I learned from some mentors who had worked with Vietnam recon guys that had all sorts of ways of making their unit appear bigger than it was. Because obviously, if you're a six-man team or whatever, and you make contact with an enemy platoon or company, if they know you're a six-man team, they're just going to run you down. Whereas if you can make it seem like you're a company plus with machine guns, multiple machine guns, and mortar support and all sorts of stuff, well, it will at least give them pause to give you a chance to get out of there. So I thought we can kind of take a similar approach here. I want them to think that we are a satellite patrol moving in parallel, either down Second Street or in this area, and that we're another platoon. Um, and we occupy this building, and it's not just us; it's actually a larger element. So I suggested, getting as many machine guns into the fight as quickly as possible, with rapid rate of fire or even cyclic rate of fire. Uh, Getting 203s, launched grenades through the windows, and even throwing grenades up onto the roof if we can. If they hear explosions up on the roof, they might think it's mortars, 60 mortars or whatever hitting the roof or whatever it might be. It's just going to make us seem like we're a big bad unit, and that will only increase the effect that we discussed in the last scenario, where they really get spooked and say, "All right, hey, more than we can bite off here. Let's pull back."
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting point that you brought up. They've let they've let one squad through. All right, so they know that there's one squad north, and if they're anticipating that we may maneuver against them, they know how big we are. They know we're only a squad because they saw us go through the kill zone, right? They haven't seen third squad yet.
Correct.
They don't know. We know that all we've got left is a squad. They don't know that all we've got left is a squad, right?
Correct.
For all
Yep.
they know, they were just looking at the leading element of a company, right? So they don't know what's coming. And if if they suspect that it's a second platoon coming up Second Street, for example, I think they're like, screw this, let's declare victory and get the heck out of here. And they start to pull out. So that's exactly right. You're playing on their uncertainty. In my mind, again, I'm trying to rationalize my decision to maneuver against them to make the threat go away. That was my solution here as well. I'm thinking this guy, he's figuring he hit us once, he hit us twice, we're still coming at him. You know what? I don't want to, I don't want to press my luck, right? I've hit them twice and they're still coming at me. I've done what I wanted to do. It's time to get out of here. And these guys are going to be pulling out pretty darn quickly before, because they're anticipating reinforcements, they're anticipating gunships, they're anticipating a QRF, right? They're anticipating supporting arms. Like I said, he's got a stopwatch in his head that's ticking all the time, and he's anxious to get out of there. And so I'm just going to give him every incentive to do that. And I think I agree with you. Making this threat from the south is the way to do it, and appearing as big as you can appear just adds to the psychology of what you're talking about. So yeah, absolutely. This has been great. Any last thoughts?
No, thank you so much again for the honor of being able to participate, and really appreciate it. Look forward to the next TDG, and thanks again.
Yeah, so one last thought. So this is Ambush in the Square. Ambush in the Square is actually based on an earlier TDG. It was called Ambush at Dusk, and that was actually based on an incident that occurred in Vietnam. This map that you're looking at here comes from an official case study done by the Marine Corps Historical Activity of actions in Vietnam. And so there's a platoon moving through a rice paddy. Your squad gets through the kill zone. The rest of the platoon is pinned down in the rice paddy. What do you, as the squad leader of first squad, the only element in the platoon that has freedom of action, what do you do? So I was trying to recreate the same pattern, the same dilemma, but change the superficial environmental factors, right? To see if people sort of recognize it as the same thing. So I'm always interested to see if sort of people recognize the same pattern. So just a little bit of history there. This is sort of the scenario that it was based on. Anyway, so if you're whoops. So if you're interested in learning more about special tactics, go to specialtactics.me. If you're interested in learning more about the Warfare Mastery Institute, go to warfaremastery.com. If you're interested in participating in the TDGs on Warfighters, I encourage you to join and subscribe. Go to warfighters.substack.com. If you want to learn more about what Shadowbox Training does, my company, go to shadowboxtraining.com. And if you want to reach out individually, make contact with us, you can email us at info@shadowboxtraining.com. I hope everybody got something out of this. Look forward to seeing you all the next time. Raven, really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. See you next
Indeed,
time.
thank you so much. Next time, indeed.
Take care.